If we don't fix our woundedness, then we parent out of woundedness. How can I get them to? And that's such a dangerous question. A lot of anxiety is self-generated and parent reinforced.
This is the Bad Mom Podcast, Parenting the Anxious Generation.
Wakeman. I am so excited to see you. And I have just been learning so much from you, and you're my new BFF. And then I unveil that you just have this incredible body of work and wisdom and know-how, and have been working in the corporate world around teams and management and all of the drama that comes into the world when people make up stuff instead of really focus on the reality that's going on. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit. I want to ask you this question first before we get started, because it's my key question. I know that you are the mom of 4 amazing boys, adult men, young men whom I've had the pleasure of meeting and are at different points in their lives and in their world, but I can really see your love reflected all over them. And my big question is, have you ever felt like a bad mom, Wakeman?
Felt like a bad mom only daily. And the key word here is felt like a bad mom, because I have a background as a therapist. And what I tell people is feel your feelings, but don't trust your feelings.
Yeah.
And so have I felt like a bad mom? Often and always. And that place comes from fear and from ego. Like if I look at the external world, are my children turning out how the world wants them to turn out? And I have to reel back in when I have that feeling and not trust my feeling, and really have a different report card, not good or bad. Am I a present mom? Am I a loving mom? Am I willing to be here in the mess as my boys, learn some skills the hard way? And so for me, I came up with kind of a secondary report card to keep myself sane, because the world would tell me my report card is if my kids go to college and if they all graduated from high school and if not one of them had struggled at any time with addictive behaviors.
Never.
And, like when I look at the report card the world wants to rate me and my kids on, I get to decide whether that's my report card. And I learned a long time ago, and was reminded again by it recently, going into a legal interaction, is forget about the outcome, because that is perspective. What looks maybe negative now in 10 years will be like the best thing ever happened. Like we can't judge in the short term. Change the report card. And this person asked me, like, what's your secondary report card? Are your values? And rate yourself on that. And so my values are more, can I show up as a calm, loving presence while my kids get, schooled by me and the world? Can I make really good amends as I make mistakes? Can I role model for my boys what amends look like? Can I role model for them what not abandoning people looks like? Even when those folks are involved in behaviors, I have to say I'm not going to enable. Like I drew a secondary report card, and then even when I feel like a bad mom, I have a different metric for myself. And that metric is, a lot about not what happened in the past and not what's going to happen in the future. Can I be present today? And was I kind and loving? And could I hold space for my kids to be where they're at instead of where I need them to be? It's not about me. And when I changed that report card, even though I felt like a bad mom a lot, that was my fear talking, and still do. I know on my secondary report card, it's all within my control, and I can show up really kind and loving anyway.
Yeah. So I love what you say about like that this is your feeling, but I've spent a lot of time now just looking at your work, and I'm addicted to your book, Life's Messy, Live Happy. And what you talk about is that this is really ego, right?
Yeah.
So you're you're deciding, or I've done this because as we've talked about and I've revealed, I've spent years feeling like a bad mom. Like, what did I do wrong with this anxious generation that we're trying to raise? And you said such a good term when we were together, and you said parents are underskilled right now in dealing with this new wave of what's happening to the mental health of our kids because of all of these extraneous forces that were never in the mix with parenting. I mean, lots of bad things have been in the mix with parenting. Lots of good things have been in the mix. And like you say, who knows? Maybe they were good, maybe they were bad, maybe it all turned out great. And so can you talk a little bit about how to recognize ego when you're making these assessments about yourself, and then like how that enables you to show up? Like if you ask those really important questions that I wrote them down, like when you talk about fear and false events appearing real. Like I want that on my forehead.
Yeah, that's borrowed from, I think, a 12, I think I first learned that in my work with a 12-step program. So there's a lot in what you're asking. So let's first talk about my theory that our job is really to skill ourselves up and skill our kids up, and to quit taking it personally and quit. The ego attaches everything to, am I good or bad? Very binary, very, black and white thinking. And the ego takes a fact and adds story to it. And facts, reality, aren't that challenging. But the story we add to reality is where our stress comes in. So my kid got arrested for having pot in his car. Okay. That reality isn't all that scary, honestly. And I'm not promoting, kids using. That reality isn't that scary. I'm pretty skilled in that. I get a lawyer. I make sure my kid is safe and well represented, and I love them up first and don't abandon them and control my own fear and emotions while I help do the legal work of getting my browner skinned kid out of the system and well represented. And I don't get into this harshness like, well, they made their bed, lie in it, and I'm not going to help a 15-year-old with, legal challenges. They created, I just say out of all that story, I just go, the reality is I have a son in legal trouble. What would a loving mom do with a son in legal trouble? And I'm skilled up in that. The reality isn't that difficult until I get into story. He's ruined his entire life. He'll never make it into Harvard. This is going to hit the paper. What am I thinking?
How does it reflect on me?
Yeah. And he probably, is going to be in juvenile delinquent hall for the rest of his life. And, and. Once I get into story, my stress comes from story, not reality. Reality is this is a small charge. It's a good wake-up call. It's great to let him face some consequences. It's good conversation for how he wants to choose going forward now that he's really clear on consequences. Like the pain's the portal, right? It is actually a perfect time for me to have a conversation about the consequences of using pot when you're 15, and it opens something up. When I say in the facts, it is simple. It's very easy for me to go, what are the facts? What could I do next that would help? And then what is my call to greatness? What can we use this to co-create out of? And how can I really be a parent here? And so we have to really understand how our ego plays us, and we've got to stop believing everything we think. And what happens in our parenting so often is we get ourselves hijacked and our amygdala hijacked, and we add fact plus story. And so we join the kid in the panic. We join the kid in let's, like we have to fight back and fight for their lives and be like this great. Actually, we just got to call a lawyer. Like stuff happens. So that being said, the ego paints us as a victim, other people as the villain. And what the ego wants when it comes to you is change my world, change my reality. And there's a lot of studies that say that, one, I can't change your reality, probably. If I can as a parent, do it. But changing your reality will only increase your happiness and state of contentment by about 10%. Helping you increase your ability to move through your reality more skillfully will increase your happiness about 40%. So most of the time when people come to parents for help, they are upset with their reality and they want their reality changed. And parents jump in to fix and change reality, which they can't. The odds of them changing reality are pretty low. What we need to do with our kids is help them get more skilled at moving through this reality more skillfully and more joyfully. But before we can do that, we've got to get ourselves skilled up. Because once you can move through a new reality more skillfully, you don't need this focus on how the reality is the problem. Does that make sense? So let's get down to some basics. First at basic is, as parents, we have two, I think, key roles in a kid's life. One is love them up. And then if we're doing that well, and by well, I mean clean love, like I can say, Mom, I need your help paying the rent. I can say, I love you and yes. And I can also say, I love you and no. And so clean love is love with a choice. It's love and it doesn't dictate my actions. So clean love is I love you and I really think you'll do a great job figuring that out for yourself. Or I love you and I could contribute $50 because I know you had an unexpected expense, but the other 500, you might want to check out Uber or something. So loving kids up is number one. And then only if we love kids up consistently without abandoning and shaming and dumping our issues on them, can we do what I call kids up to greatness? And they come in that order. So loving kids up and calling kids up. And parents need to be alchemists. They need to transcend the energy of the moment. Leaders transcend the energy of the moment. So if you're coming in hot and anxious, I'm not parenting if I'm joining that energy coming in hot or anxious. I'm only
that's
parenting.
A real skill.
Yeah,
that is a real skill.
And it brings us back to most parents are underskilled with their own anxiety. They're underskilled with their own living.
Yes.
I have a coach and I get so frustrated when I'm like, I wish my kids would drink less. And he will say, it sounds like you're really concerned about what alcohol does to the body and the brain. I'm like, I am. He's like, hey, I have an idea. If you think it's so important, why don't you go first?
I loved when you told me that story.
I'm like, you know what? If I think it's so important, I'll go first. And I'm not saying that tritely, but it's so deep to me because I have changed my relationship with alcohol without me ever preaching or saying a word. My boys have changed their relationship with alcohol and we never had a conversation about it. I believe 90% of our job as a parent is if we want our kids self-reflective, we need to be self-reflective. If we want our kids to be able to make good amends and realize the consequences of their actions, we need to go first. Show them how. Show them how.
Yeah,
if you think it's so easy, do it yourself. Do it yourself.
That is so true. When I was with you and you told me that, I came home and I actually shared that with Mike, with my husband. And I was like, look, this is what Sai is up to, right? She's dealing with issues with her kid. And what is and to me, like you and I have talked about it, my whole world, every place I run into a jam, I just hold up that serenity prayer, right? Like, what can I control? What can I control? What's the difference, right? I can control my actions. I can control who I am being. And to your point, and it's so funny how, I'm sure you're such a studied spiritual being now. I can just tell it through your work and, how it's discipline. Like you've really disciplined yourself into thinking this way, just like working out, you've got to study this and try it. But I can really see where it was only when I started to change and focus on myself and what I could control and actually be reflective of that with Zach. Like, wow, this is what I've struggled with. This is where it's been painful for me. This is where I am making choices to control what I can control. That's when he started to heal. It wasn't when I was like getting a million, things aligned for him and making sure his life worked and A, B, C, D, E. So I think what you're saying is exactly that. Like, what can you do? What can I
Right.
do as a parent about myself and my own actions and behaviors rather than doing what we all know never really works, which is to get in there and to try to fix it for them.
Yeah, and in the ego, that's the ego. The ego is like, let me skip over
Totally.
myself and let me control the world and manufacture something for my kid. I really believe our kids are our best teachers. And if we don't fix our woundedness, then we parent out of woundedness. And so much of our parenting is actually over involvement out of our own fear and our own woundedness and our own um, our own way through. And so much of it is ego and the illusion of control. And so my so many people ask me, like, as a leader, as a parent, like, how can I get them to? And that's such a dangerous question. That's such a dangerous question
How
because,
can I get them to the wrong
yeah, how
question?
can I hold them accountable? How can I get them to, make better choices? How can I get them to? I'm like, horrible question. Horrible question. A better question, maybe, how am I enabling that which I don't want? And a lot of times, like, we enable, like, in our language. Like, I was a therapist for a while and I worked with a
Wow.
woman, and she's like, how she told me her son had relapsed. And so I held space for her. I said, that's really sad to hear. I know how much you love him. And this is really a tough time for him to be using chemicals, on his brain development. It's not a great stage. I get that it has to be hard for you. And then I said, by invitation, do you want to work on this? And she said, yeah. I said, well, chemicals are expensive. Where does he get the money? And she said, well, he uses his lunch money. And I'm like, oh, well, where does he get lunch money? And she goes, well, I give him lunch money. And I said, well, um, maybe stop that. And she said, well, what kind of parent doesn't give her own kid lunch money? And I said, oh, I see what the problem is. You are calling it lunch money. Let's name it clearly. Let's see reality clearly. Does he use it for lunch? Well, no. Then what's he use it for? Drugs. Okay, let's just call it drug money. And re-ask the question, what kind of parent gives her kid drug money? And she's like, that makes it so clear. But our ego and our victimness, we name things not for what they are. We have shame around going to lunch and saying, how's your son today? Oh, he's in juvie. He got picked up for pod. I'm just trying to get a good
It's
lawyer
such a tough
for
one.
him.
I've gone
And
to
to
so
say that
many
in the most
lunches like
conversational
that.
way possible opens, people are like, oh my God, you must have problems at home. I'm like, we do. We have tons of problems at home. And I love that we have these problems because I get to teach my kid, like, how to navigate, like the legal system. Who wants them to learn that during their first divorce at the age of 40? Like, who? And by being able to just put that out there, like, we break this weird shame bubble we're all in. And I know that sounds crazy, but most people, are really into not working on their own thing. And so when I hear people ask me that question, like, how can I get them not to, I know we're really off track. And 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 that they're working on them. And so the tools I use for people, just to be really clear for your audience, it's 3 steps. So step one, actually 4, but there's a preliminary step. Step 1 is check yourself before you wreck yourself. If you are triggered, if you are about to meet whatever came your way with big energy, you are about to fail your kid. If I come into an emergency room and I'm having chest pains and you're the provider and you come out and you say, what's wrong? And I go, I have crushing chest pains. And you say, me too. I'm like, I came here for medicine, for medical care, and you have the same symptoms. Kids come to parents for parenting. Be an adult and a parent. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Even if you have to say, I want to do a good job with this. So can we reschedule for a half an hour? I just need to go and get myself okay so that I can come back and actually give you some parenting. And what that leads to is kids bring you problems earlier rather than later because they don't have to fear that they're going to be dysregulated and you're going to be dysregulated. From the time that baby's born, we are co-regulating. Kids borrow our nervous system since day one. And we need to
Wow.
really really fine tune our co-regulation. So that's number one. Second is clean up your thinking, clean up your story, edit your story. So step number one is clear thinking. What do I know for sure? What is really happening? What is the facts versus what is the story? What are my assumptions? What are my assignment of motive? What are my fears for the future? What am I bringing with me in the past? Because any moment of parenting, there's only about 20% that has anything to do with what's going on now. All of the rest of it is what you bring in from your past or your fear of the future. We don't need that in the moment. We need co-regulation, and we need people to get very clear, and kids need a skill about how to think clearly. And I call it the call to greatness has 3 steps. One is clean up your thinking. And we have to get rid of this means that. Like, this happened and so his future is ruined, or this happened so it means he doesn't respect my authority, or, like, because what if you're not clear in your thinking, you lead to poor choices. Like I said before, like people think, oh, my kid drank last night, and so now that he's hungover, I'm going to lecture him and assign him a bunch of work. And I don't know about you, but when I've screwed up my life and drink too much, the last thing I want my partner doing is like waking me up at 7 a.m. to lecture me. It's the most unloving thing ever. A more loving thing would be, how can I take care of your needs now? I bet you have a headache. I bet you're dehydrated. Let me teach you what alcohol does to your body and how you can remedy that. And then we're going to have some conversations. We don't have to have them today. Evidently, you're not going anywhere. Like, we're going to have some conversations about how that worked out for you. And so that's the first thing. Clean up your thinking so that your stress isn't coming from your story and you're seeing reality clearly. And by clearly, if it is dangerous behavior and you can't stop yourself, then if I see reality clearly, you might need treatment, and I still have authority over you. So I might, give you a try at treatment. It's not enabling, but it's just seeing, alcoholism is no different than diabetes. If you had diabetes, would I be screaming at you, or would I take you to an endocrinologist and get you
Right.
insulin? Like,
Right.
and so, but when we have fears of our kids being addicts and we use language like you're an addict, they're a kid who's exhibiting some addictive behavior. And by the way, everybody is. Social media, use of
We're all
exercise,
addicts.
like, we're all addicts. And so do we shame them for being addicts, or do we say, here's how you're susceptible as a human being to your brain chemistry and your seeking of dopamine? And let's talk about good dopamine. Get out in sunshine early. Like, most people aren't talking about their kids at the age of 5 about, we're waking up. What do we do first? Mom goes out in the sun. So why don't you come with me? Let's go for a walk. Now we get up, get on our phones, and then we're mad at them for being on their phones or wanting a phone. Second is, so what do I know for sure is the first question, self-reflection. The second question is, what could I do right now that would help? Not hinder, that would actually help. And that is, we want people to find their place of impact. So if I have an unpreferred reality, don't name it. It's just an unpreferred reality. This isn't my favorite behavior my kid gets into. And I want a different future. Instead of arguing with the current reality or hoping for a different future, I've got to come into the place of impact that is the only thing, my choices, my behavior, that could connect a different reality, an unpreferred reality, to a different future. So I have to find, like, what was my part in how we got here, my point of impact? What's my part in moving forward? What could I do next that would be most helpful? How can I love people up and create safety? And then the third one is right next steps. So when I'm coming from that place, then we can think about, what would you like your future to look like? And how can we co-create so that the kid is age appropriately involved in the activity? How can we co-create something different? Like, if it were amazing, what would that look like? And like helping them envision something amazing and their part in getting it to be amazing. So if a kid is 4 years old and we want their room to stay more orderly, right? That's probably not their need, it's our need.
Good luck.
It's good for their regulatory system. All the ways we do, like we clean angrily, or we, like lecture them to pick up, which is age inappropriate. Like we do all of these underskilled things. And if you read books like Love and Logic and parenting books that really talk about co-creation, what I would do to a 3 or 4-year-old is I would look at the unpreferred reality that when their toys are disordered, it makes choosing what to play with hard. And so I really want for their brain development, easy choices for them to initiate self-play. That's really good for their development. It's a good parenting thing to do. And so I look at that unpreferred reality and I start to think about what I would want the future to look like. And where's my place of impact? So my place of impact could be Montessori recommends not having tons of toys out. And Montessori recommends, if you believe in Montessori, having very clear shelving, and that playtime always ends with restoration of the environment. And so I can get skilled up and find my point of impact, but I've got to find their point of impact where they can co-create with me. And so I'm not going to explain Montessori theory to a 4-year-old, but I am going to say, it looks like you're almost done playing with that. I think a really fun thing to do would be to pick all this up. What's your favorite way to do that? Do you want to put it in this basket? Do you want to shoot it to the basket? Do you want to, should we put it in a parachute? Like, give them a choice. And they're like, I'm going to shoot it towards the basket. Perfect. Let's do that. And that's how you find a place of impact so that you can start connecting an unpreferred reality to a different future. And this is where you're not a victim parent. You're not helpless. You are, helping them co-create something different. And you can take that up, to the same messy room to kids like in, high school. And it's just different technology. Like it's a different methodology. Like I don't love their rooms being a disaster with food and like stuff that's not picked up, but harping's not going to get there. It's, working with my kid to say, this is unpreferred reality. What would you envision an acceptable form of your room to be? And let me see if I can sign off on that. And now let's talk about point of impact and how you're going to make that happen. And if I find dishes in their room all the time, I got to lower my standards. They might come up with, I'm going to use paper plates and I'm going to have a garbage can. And that's the bare minimum I'm going to do because I'm 15. And I'm like, that's fine. As long as it's not my living environment, that's fine. So long-winded answer is you clean up your thinking, see reality as it is, you find your part in how we got here, and you find your part in how we could move forward differently. And we grow and upskill you, and then we co-create something really great together. We take the next right action. And if we're parenting, we have to realize that we're going to have to do that together a lot. The other thing parents do is they're like, I told you, so you should do it. And it doesn't happen in one time. It happens in, I love you. It seems like this is a theme. Let's get you well loved. And then we're going to adjust our approach to see if we've got something you can't gain mastery over. And it's with that energy that's so important. So I don't know if that helps, but those are my tools that I use a lot.
No, I think that is such a valuable exercise. And I really hope that it's something that moms can hear and sort of take away like 1, 2, 3, like have that cue card in your car when, you pick up the kids from school and they're just a raging mess and everything's gone on. You don't have to meet their energy, right? And I think it's a very complex world out there for parenting right now. And again, moreover, of why I wanted to start this is because I think it's painful, right? It's difficult to see your kids suffer. And so having some tools is, I think, for me, is such a useful path. So thank you so much. What do you call that 3-part thing?
We call it, see, it's like the call to greatness. I give a TED Talk on it. In our training, we call it the call to greatness. And a lot of times,
I love that, the call to greatness.
The call to greatness. And the call to greatness isn't always for the other person, but the final step is like, what would great look like? That is my secondary report card. And so a lot of times what great would look like to me is appearing as my highest self. And, you know, in internal family systems, which I really love, like if I'm reacting, it's probably a call to parent myself right now. Like I have some 13-year-old part of me that is like over managing the situation. And instead of me acting on that, I have to, as my highest self, come in and say, you know, I call her Cindy. I'm like, Cindy, girl, what's up? You've got the matches out and you're about to burn this place down. Like, what's going on? And parent her. And once I listen to her and parent myself, I'm so much more open to the world, because one of the quotes I love is there's a lot of ways backwards, but there's only one way forward, and that's with love. And love is means I have a lot of grace and tolerance for people's imperfections. And I think parenting is a lot about growing my own tolerance for what I might call suffering, but it's not really suffering. Like you put your baby down for tummy time, they feel like they're being dropped off at an orphanage. Kids hate tummy time. But I've got to get immune to being, I need to be able to be gracious while you struggle a bit. And so I think a lot of times our kids, we, you know, bringing it back to anxiety and all of that,
Oh, yeah.
anxiety usually is a behavior, not a feeling. Okay. Anxiousness is a behavior. Worrying is a behavior, not a feeling. The feeling is just fear, or the feeling is um, being scared about some uncertainty, or feeling vulnerable, or feeling unskilled, feeling, you know, like I don't quite know what I'm doing, like feeling incompetent, like. But we intellectualize this into anxiety, and anxiety is what is the call to parents that parents respond to. So my oldest son started calling me Cy one day, and I'm like, after about 2 weeks of this, I'm like, why do you call me Cy? He goes, because I could say mom 1,000 times and you don't answer. But if I say Cy, you're like, what? Like, because our house, you know, we had lots of kids and lots of chaos. And so what I have to be very careful is how I train my kids to get my attention and my presence. And if the only way my kids can get my presence is through misbehavior or being cripplingly anxious, then I have to be careful not to enable that. A lot of anxiety is self-generated and parent reinforced.
Wow, I love that. A lot of anxiety is self-generation generated and parentally reinforced, because we're going in there to heal the suffering that we can't stand. And rather than setting a boundary and saying, go figure it out yourself. Well, this is so
And there's 100 things in
powerful.
between go figure it out or let me do it. It's like, you know, you want a role model or rehearse with me? Can I walk up with you? It's like we just have to have a weaning plan. But I would tell you, most parents want to ease their kids' anxiety. And what I would work with them on as their therapist is getting greater tolerance for your child having what we call feelings. And if the kid's not happy and they're having a feeling like anger or something else, the parent can't take it. Why? Because the parent isn't okay with their own feelings. And I'm like,
Well,
sit with your grief until it tells you your name. Like, be good with your own feelings. You'll be really good with other people's feelings.
right, and I think that's kind of your theory in this latest book. Life is messy. You can be happy anyway, right? Well, Sai, this has been so great, and I think that we're going to have you back in season 2 of the Bad
would
Mom
love that.
podcast, and we'll do it together when we're down in beautiful Mexico. But you know, before we go, I just want you to take a minute. I know you have 3 major books. You have a TED Talk. Like, tell us a little bit about how we can find out more about your work, what you recommend is like your greatest resource that a parent, or, you know, so many of our community are professionals and entrepreneurs and need these resources for their work as well. How can we find out more about you?
Absolutely. And I want to make one more comment as a watch out
Yes.
before I tell you that, because it's so heavy on my heart. So much parenting advice, it tells us to do things and we do it and abandon our kids. The key to all of this is staying present and loving while you do it. Because a lot of times we're like, go off to your room, I'm setting a boundary, or you're getting a consequence. Stay with me and let's cook dinner tonight, and know that you're not going to be going out tonight. Like, we have to work with kids and be present for kids and not abandon kids. And right now, most of the parenting, when we get tough love, it's really abandonment. It's not taking action while staying lovingly with kids. So I just wanted to say that be careful of using parental advice, weaponizing, leaving your child abandoned and alone at the hour they need you the most. It's not that you get them away from you or you set a boundary. It's that you keep them with you and love them while setting a boundary. So people can find me if it's workplace related. And we've got a great company called Reality Based Leadership. It's at realitybasedleadership.com. And in the process of a beautiful transition. So if anybody wants corporate work, go there. And I or any of the other great associates that work there can help them. I do have actually 4 books. So Reality-Based Leadership, Reality-Based Rules of the Workplace, no problem, No Ego. And then my latest one's Life's Messy, Live Happy. There's tons of podcasts out there of our own that we call Reality-Based Leadership. It's all under the same name. At Cy Wakeman is a lot of our handles out there on social media. And know that there's so many beautiful people.
What's the title of your TED Talk?
I think it's 3 questions that can change your life. But if you just look up TED and Cy Wakeman, it will come right up for you.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just talks about the power of those 3 questions.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so life-changing. Definitely want to be able to put this into our grit kit that we're going to have under Project Grit with my foundation, just like my child foundation. We're creating the grit kit for parents, for students, for teachers, for kids, just different segments of resources. So I'd love to be able to incorporate your work in there as well. Because even during this conversation, I had to go back 3 times to the questions. Like, it's a discipline, right? You've got to, you've got to embody it. So thank you so much, Cy. I've learned so much.
So welcome.
I am really looking forward to learning more, and mostly I'm looking forward to hanging out with you in Mexico.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.